Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap up here on Landy's Crypto Corner powered by the Gokhstein News Network. Today is June 13th, 2025. We're looking at Bitcoin as always, as it did hit some of our downside targets that we were looking for upon a failure at 106. We did get our essentially 104 to 101 area hit. Where did the low actually come in? Now that I think about it, it was at 102.745, so kind of splitting the difference there. We'll look at the zones of interest in just a moment here, but I'd like to start out with kind of what the trend is shaping up to be, or what the trend could possibly become from here, as we did just have a downtrend break with the new higher high up here coming in at that 110.725, and with this move back down, we're looking for, after a trend break, for a higher low or equal low structure, right? And here on the daily, we need to see a higher low form from here, or an equal low as it relates to the last lower low down here. And of course, that is where we saw the close come in above the 101 level at the support there. We did get our sweep down below the 100,700 area, but no closes below 101 in that 101 to 104 region. Now we've seen that area hit again. And even closed, we did see the closure come in above, what did we get? 106, actually. So what would it take to set a higher low here? In this case, any close above the Friday candle high. Of course, it's still Friday for me, but the Saturday session is open. And that's going to be at 106.233. If we do see a closure above there on the daily, then we would be looking at another higher low. And, we would also set a swing higher low as it relates to this last lower low. That would be the trend reversal setup. Trend reversal confirmation would be closing back above the 110.651 here. And I do want to note that that lines up now on the daily with the upper second standard deviation, meaning if we did see a trend reversal setup begin to confirm with a higher low, and then we get the confirmation above the upper second and the most recent higher high, we're looking at expansion back to that 110 to 112, and then possibly up further to that 112 to 115, 115 to, I would say, in lower term time frames, probably 120, just to kind of keep things simple. And then our more overall target up there for a very important area to pay attention to at $128,000 to $130,000. But in this case, we await confirmation of a potential trend reversal setup on the daily. And then, of course, continuation, or confirmation from there, rather, and continuation to the highs and the all-time high and higher. There is, there was a lot of very bearish sentiment on the timeline surrounding some of the price action up here. I will say that anything below, the lows down here would, likely confirm bears suspicion that price will come down and test around this area, which of course is right on top of a major weekly at that 93.5 on the lows, where price kind of recovered the overall range over here. And upon getting into the overall range, hit $98,000 with a higher low coming in right at a weekly higher low close open. Or the last higher low on a close open basis for the weekly in this case. And that's where this whole move originated from. So, so far, I'm not looking for that unless we see closes below the lows here at around that $100,000 level. So can it swing down there? Sure. But as it stands right now, not too much to be made of it until we actually see some price action down there on a closing basis. Maybe the edge will be in the lower term timeframes, right? Obviously. But, this is a nice buyback on the daily for the Friday session. And we'll see what the weekend has in store for us, right? Now, keep in mind that next Wednesday, we do have Powell making a decision on Powell and the Fed, but we'll hear what he has to say, and if there is anything new in terms of the rate decision. I'm still in the camp of likely no change, but that could change. That could change between now and Wednesday as well. Of course, I'll have a video out on Monday I don't think there's going to be too much coming into next week that's going to change my mind. It's really going to be about that Wednesday press conference. So we're going to get their interest rate decisions, and of course the press conference itself, and what their economic projections are. And just keep in mind that this is the last month of the second quarter, so we will get a quarterly close, and with our monthly close, and then we'll also be getting a 6-month close. So let's go ahead and take a look at the local support and resistance zones of interest here. And Bitcoin teasing, reclaiming the basis band here on the daily, which is right there at the close open double top over here, right? We did have higher highs up here, but there is the close open essentially directly on that 106, 136 level. I do want to see bulls reclaim that. Then we can start looking at this area between that 106 to that 109, 360 and back right to that upper second standard deviation. So otherwise, we saw the failure at 106 in the lower term time frames from the Thursday into Friday session, and then subsequently price falling right into the bucket here by the lower first, the 1272 as well down here, between our 104 and 101 area. Of course, I'd rather not see, if I'm bullish, closes below 101. If we hadn't already run the lows, we highly likely would, and of course that would open up the door for closing below there, which means that if we didn't already see moves down to 98 and the point of control here at $96,000, which I would save some room for wicks over here to like 95. But realistically, this is a very key area before running into that weekly higher low close that I was talking about at 93.5, where the move kind of originated after recovering the low side of the prior structure here. So that'd be a very important area, and that's kind of last line of defense before going and retesting that 93.5. Anywhere below there, of course, we've got 96 to essentially 88.7, $89,000 or so. Not too much to be made of if price is going to go down there until we, the only thing that really gets it started for me, in my opinion, is closes below 100K, essentially closes below the last lower low. And for the weekly, and we can take a look at a few other things. This bearish divergence played out already with that nice bounce down into support. Nice bounce from support now. That's pretty much first major target hit upon confirmation of that bearish divergence with the Thursday session closure. And nice bounce out of it. If we're going to get continuation, it's going to be below the last lower low. So right now, that move is pretty much over until proven otherwise. And I would say here on the weekly, this is going to be the big one to kind of pay attention to, because there's a few different ways that things could potentially play out here. If this closes anything like this, this is still kind of a nothing burger, not a high, nor would it be anything more than a higher high to higher low swing. So while I would accept a higher low swing, so we have the higher high trend break on the weekly after breaking the downtrend there on closes above that $88,800, $89,000, depending on your chart. It's if this ends up painting like this week, especially on any closes below 106.9, 107 area, this isn't necessarily a closing structural high or low. And even at that, the high wasn't actually painted. And if price starts to dive below the $100,000 area, even subsequently after, if it closes anything like this is more of a complex high. And of course, you're going to hear people that are going to be concerned about the failure to close above the 109.360 as we have a 109.48 closure up here, right? But bulls back above 106.9, 107 are going to look as though they're going to want to run this high again in subsequent weekly candles if it wasn't, by Sunday. If they manage to push above that 107 area, then likely we will see an attempt made at the high side structure on the weekly and all-time high. So essentially 109 on the weekly close to that 112 high. Of course, above there, I would be looking for the upper second standard deviation to stretch out to 115. That's where I'm getting my 112 to 115 by the upper second. Anywhere above there, kind of, it's fair game. I would take 115, 120, even numbers. There are some things that we'll look at on Monday, provided it didn't already get there. If there's like some sort of big move between now and when I record on Monday. There's some Fibonacci levels of interest overhead for local structure around the 115, 116 area, and then it's kind of 120, and then we start looking to, expansion again on the weekly, especially on closes above 115. This will, no matter how this closes, we are going to get another tick up on the upper second, so I expect this to be somewhere around 115, 116 anyway. And then we start looking at deeper targets by the upper third, of course, above 120 to, I would say, 125 or so. And that's getting really, really close to, the local fib extension here for the 1414, which is going to be that $128,000 to $130,000, depending on your chart, in which exchange you're charting on, which also aligns with our macro Fibonacci pole, right? So that $128,000 area is interesting because from a local downtrend pull to trend break on a possible breakout, matches the 1414 on the macro scale here, which is also going to be $128,000 to $130,000. So good confluence there. This is also, on top of the 1272 here on weekly closes. Of course, we did get a slight close above it, failure right at it in terms of closes, a move down below the 16.8% above, or 1.168, which is, of course, 16.8% above the $69,000 high. And we're starting to hold 27.2% above. We'll see if that remains an area of interest. Of course, the upper first standard deviation is right there as well, right around that 104 level. So that's going to be something to pay attention to. It's actually 103.9. You might as well call it 104. Now, what about momentum? Bulls really do want to see that close above 106, 107. Momentum pivot to keep momentum pointing to the upside, although initial cross is not crazy bearish or anything like that until we see confirmation. 106, 530 is going to be the momentum pivot for the weekly. You can also see that if it does paint a closing higher high up here, we would get weekly bearish divergence. So again, I need to stress this. Even if we saw bearish divergence, bears might be celebrating and would be very, very happy with a move back down. This is still just a trend break, and we look for higher low equal low structures. It's the most statistically likely outcome from a trend breaking structure, moving from a especially when considering moving from a lower low to a higher high on a close and swing that engulfs the entire structure, but also an all-time high, right? So it's more statistically likely to result in a weekly higher low swing and or closure. And that's, the first thing that we'd be looking for, even if we did get a turn. And at this particular moment, we have not seen anything more than the etchings of possibilities, right? So where that begin to, really, really break down, it's, of course, below $100,000, basically $100,377 here on spot. Call it $100,000 even if you want. And you can kind of look at that 102.563 as a big level within that 101 to 104 daily level area. But, so far, so good, been tested. We'll see what the results are as we get closer to Sunday. And then, of course, we'll talk about all of it on Monday after the Monday session close. And that's where I'm going to leave things for today. I hope that everyone has a wonderful weekend. And then, of course, a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And, of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, Landy out. Take care.